It's now been 4 days since Hillary Clinton said that her campaign would be looking into releasing the transcripts of the speeches that she gave to Wall Street. Speeches which, by the way, she was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars per hour to give. Well, just a day after that, one of her spokespeople was asked about it because, you know, the media, they want to keep their feet to the fire. And Joel Benenson said, "I don't think voters are interested in the transcripts of her speeches." So that's not a good sign if you want them to come out, that's their message a day afterward. But it's now been 4 days. In fact, there is a website that is literally just a counter going up of how long it's been that they've been looking into it. Now, the media had Hillary Clinton on. We're going to find out, does she think that there's any sort of onus on her to release them, as has been asked several times over the past few days? Let's watch.
In the debate the other night, you said you'd look into whether or not to release the transcripts of your speeches to financial groups. Have you made up your mind?
Yeah, you know, here's another thing I want to say. Let everybody who's ever given a speech to any private group, under any circumstances, release them. We'll all release them at the same time. You know, I don't mind being the subject in the Republican debates, the subject in the Democratic primary. That kind of goes with the territory. I've been around long enough. But at some point, you know, these rules need to apply to everybody. And there are a bunch of folks, including, you know, my opponent who's given, you know, speeches to groups, and people on the other side who've given speeches to groups. If this is now going to be a new standard, so then it should apply to everybody, and then I'll be happy to look into it further.
So right off the bat, I will say I agree. When you get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single speech, let alone many that happening many times, I think it should be applied to everyone. But there's something hilarious in her saying, including my opponent has given these speeches, when it's not even that she's lying and saying that he's been paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. She can't even claim that it's true. She simply says he's given speeches. Has he been paid for those speeches? He has not been paid for those speeches. You don't think that he's been paid for those speeches? I don't, first of all, or second of all, I don't even think he'd have a problem with releasing the transcripts of the speeches if he gave them.
Yeah. No, that's why she said everybody has to release the transcripts, including the Republicans, because the Republicans won't release them. If she just said the Democrats, Bernie would be like,
here they are.
Yeah, boom, here you go, here's the transcripts.
I know I put them somewhere.
Okay, here, guys, get the speeches, the speeches. Okay, so Bill Clinton tried to defend Hillary Clinton and said, well, look, if we're going to eliminate anybody who's taken money from Goldman Sachs, I guess we're going to have a writing candidate. No, your assumption is everyone you know has taken money from Goldman Sachs, but Bernie Sanders hasn't. You don't need a writing candidate. That guy's already on the ballot.
Yeah.
So they're like, come on. It must be genuine surprise to them. Bernie didn't take money from Goldman Sachs?
Oh, my God.
Like every single person I know, he's not bought? Man, no wonder we're in trouble.
And Clinton specifically said, if you're going to eliminate everyone who's gotten money from Goldman Sachs, you might have to tweak that rule or else we'll need. I would say instead of tweaking the rule, how about we tweak the campaign finance system that requires that apparently, in your estimation, every candidate has to speak to Goldman Sachs. How about we change that rule?
Okay, I want to give a little bit of context here. John's got more numbers for you in a second about how much Hillary Clinton made in 2013. But so that we're clear on this, she gets paid at a minimum $225,000 a speech. So from Goldman Sachs alone, in just 2013, she made $675,000. Not campaign contributions. Those are different numbers. $675,000 goes straight to her pocket.
She's literally paid.
Yes, and that's her personal money. She gets to keep it. And then in speeches she's given to the big banks, she's made, again, personal money, not campaign, $1.8 million, okay, from the big banks. In terms of her campaign contributions, so far she's gotten over $21 million in campaign contributions to her and her super PAC from the big banks.
Just the banks?
Yes.
That's a crazy number if it was everybody.
Yes, but, and Bernie Sanders points out, she's also gotten a lot of money from the drug companies, et cetera. So if you think it's crazy for us to question you when you personally benefit to the tune of millions of dollars, let alone your family, which we'll get to in a second as well, right, from the big banks, and you have over $20 million they've given your campaign, and you don't think that's a legitimate question to ask, hey, could you possibly be influenced by those millions of dollars? You're living on a different planet. Believe me, we all question it. The entire country questions it. That's why Bernie Sanders is doing so well. Honestly, that's partly why Donald Trump's doing well on the other side, because everybody gets it. The donors own you guys. And for her to feign outrage, like, oh, I am shocked. I am shocked and chagrined. I am aghast
Yeah.
that you would impugn my reputation.
Man, it's just artful smears from top to bottom up in here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
it's ridiculous.
Look, Senator Clinton, Secretary Clinton, I got bad news for you. Yes, we are impugning you and all of the other politicians. Now, in the case of Bernie Sanders, he doesn't take super PAC money. We're not biased towards Bernie Sanders, and he happens to not take super PAC money, and that's convenient for us. We like Sanders because he's not taking super PAC money. Do you get it? But they don't. They think like, no, it's not fair. It's not fair that he has this advantage where he's not bought like we are. But that's why people like him.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, Bernie's been in the race for slightly less than 1 year. You're implying that if we were to have the resources to go back more than a year, that we had ever talked about campaign finance as a company. Clearly we haven't.
Us talking about getting money out of politics, it would never happen on the Young
Exactly.
Turks.
Now, I just want to clear up one thing because somebody tweeted this out, very useful information. When she said at the debate that we're going to look into the release of it, she was implying that she might not be able to, either that they would not be accessible or that Goldman Sachs and the other banks wouldn't allow her to release the transcripts. Just want you to know that that is not true based on all the evidence we have. We don't have her contracts from those because she hasn't released them yet, but we do have the contract that she signed with the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I am being told that this is standard boilerplate for her contracts, similar to other contracts. And it says that the lecture and any supporting materials provided by the speaker remain the intellectual property of speaker. She retains the rights. And bear in mind that by 2014, she has given literally hundreds of these sorts of speeches. I have a feeling she's got that contract on lockdown. And now, if we go to the contract from her 2013 speech to the University of Buffalo, sponsor agrees to pay a fee of $1,000 for the services of a stenographer who will be on site at the event. So they will transcribe the speaker's remarks. Those remarks, they're out there, and she has the rights to them. If she wanted to release them, she could. They're probably saved somewhere on one of her email servers. Like, she could just put it out if she wanted to. She chooses not to. But let's jump back to the numbers because that's what we're interested here. She received $225,000 for 34 of the 41 speeches listed on her tax return. This is back in 2013. Of the remaining 7, they range from $250,000 to $400,000. In total, she received $9,680,000 for speaking engagements in just 2013. Almost $10 million for just her for just 1 year. And by the way, that goes to disprove one of the things she said at last week's town hall, where Anderson Cooper asked her, so why did they give you so much money? And she said, well, I don't know. That's what they offered. That is true. That is what they offered. But it's because you, by contract, require that they pay you at least that much, if not more. They could have offered less, but then they wouldn't have gotten you. And they know that because that's how you roll. That's why you get $225,000 specifically for 34 different speeches. That is your standard fee. You can't act surprised that they offer that much money when you've received it literally dozens of times.
And she, at one point, got in trouble because she said when she left office, they were dead broke. Okay, now, I think she was originally referring to when the Clintons left office entirely the first time around. Even so.
I find that hard to believe.
Knowing that you made nearly $10 million just for a series of very simple speeches. I've done speeches. You go in, you speak for an hour, maybe a little bit more handshaking and saying, oh, yeah, absolutely. Goldman Sachs, what do you need? I got you if I'm ever president. And then you leave. Okay, it's not that difficult. You got $10 million for that. Don't talk about how at one point in your life you were dead broke, and that's why you had to make the speeches. That's what her defense of the speeches was. You weren't dead broke in the middle of making $10 million worth of speeches
in 2013
alone. But this goes to her arrogance, and that's why she's in a world of trouble now. Because, my God, I mean, look, here I'll get the punchline on how much they have overall. Since 2001, in speeches alone, the Clintons have made $153 million.
Or, in layman's terms, dead broke.
$153 million just for speeches. So don't say you were dead broke. Don't say that, and that's why you had to make speeches. That is so disingenuous. That's why people don't like you, because if you know the facts, you know that in that case you're lying, and even if you're technically telling the truth that for 1 second you guys did not have $100 million, it comes across as
so
ridiculous, over the top.
It's Mitt Romney material.
But even more so than getting in trouble for the speeches and for being bought, which, look, that's what the system is. That's why you need to change the system. Almost every politician in this system has to beg for money, and the system corrupts you.
Yeah.
It's not that Hillary Clinton is a particularly bad person. Of course not, right? And in the beginning of her career, she fought for children and women's rights, and she has sometimes throughout her career, right? She's not a particularly loathsome person. No, generally been on the right side of stuff. But the system corrupts you. And when you feign surprise, like, oh, you think I'm corrupted because I took $20 million in my campaign and $153 million for our family from these guys? Yeah, of course we think you're corrupted, because even if you don't know it, you're corrupted.
Yeah.
But okay, so that's a huge part of the equation. But there is one other part of the equation. It's the arrogance. To go when you know you're going to run for president. Everybody in the world knew it.
Yep.
Hillary Clinton knew it. And you already have $150 million, but you wanted to make $10 million more. So you went and spoke to all those banks and all those corporations, and you took their money and put it in your pocket, so you'd have $153 instead of $143 million in the Clinton war chest. Personally, right? That goes to show you she thought, and that is her Achilles heel. It was in 2008, and it is today. I can't lose. I'm inevitable. I'm the overwhelming favorite here. Who's going to beat me?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders? No, I'll brazenly take money from the banks that people despise who fix the system.
Yeah.
I'll put it in my pocket, not even for my campaign.
What's the worst that could happen?
And I won't get in any trouble for it, because I'm above the law. I'm above having to appeal to people, the common people.
Or above the common sense that a person looking at that realizes you didn't get paid $225,000 to talk about your trips to Cairo and to Africa and about how it was so hard to get healthcare reform passed. I'm sure that that's very interesting material. Maybe you would pay $20 or $30 for the DVD, but you would not pay $200,000. Look, paying $100,000 to a former president to speak is bananas, and I wouldn't do it. I understand these people are rich, I still wouldn't do it. But they're not getting a former senator to speak and paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. She doesn't believe that. And what's worse for her is that a regular person hearing that doesn't believe that.
And it is supremely arrogant to think that nobody would catch on to it, that she was so inevitable, that she was above these normal rules of conduct. And so now when that catches up with her and it turns out she wasn't above it, and she has been caught with her hand in the Goldman Sachs cookie jar.
Yeah.
So please don't act surprised or outraged, because most people would have realized that was the most obvious thing that was going to happen.
Exactly.
So sad day for you. Now we know it, and that's why you're desperately trying to keep those transcripts away from people, because you know what she said. If she hadn't said anything wrong, they'd have put them out right away.
Yeah.
Right?
And that doesn't mean that she said, I'm going to give you everything you want. It's almost certainly not anything like that. But it's probably embarrassingly fawning stuff about Wall Street and about how important they are and how important it is that politicians work with bankers. It's probably nothing explicit that would blow up her candidacy, but it would set a tone of, oh, she's in the service of these people.
And I remember reporting at the time from sources saying that basically what she had said in the speeches were that bankers are misunderstood.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't jive with what she's been saying in the campaign trail, that she told them to cut it out.
Yeah.
It turns out she most likely did not say that, and she's perfectly free to disprove me, because in her contract it says that she has the speeches. So go ahead and show how that's not true, and how you wagged your finger at them at $225,000 per speech and told them to cut it out.
Yeah, that's a bad buy in that case. The one last thing I want to say is it also goes against the message by Brian Fallon, her press secretary, who told MSNBC, no one will regulate Wall Street more strictly than her. If that's the case, then why are they paying her $200? It seems like an unwise investment on your part if she's just such a vigorous fighter against Wall Street that basically when she already knew she was going to be running again for president, you paid her millions of dollars to speak in front of you.
Here's what Goldman Sachs doesn't often get accused of, foolish investments, okay? And you know, because if they were really paying millions of dollars to people who might actually regulate them, they would have given it to Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Goldman Sachs giving a dime to Bernie Sanders?
No.
Gee, I wonder why they won't give to Bernie Sanders, but they are super happy to grease Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
I can't quite figure it out. If Hillary Clinton's the nominee, which is still an excellent chance of that being the case,
More likely than not, yeah.
we are screwed. Like, people think, like, oh man, at lunch today, somebody asked me the question that I get most often. But isn't Bernie Sanders unelectable? No, no, no. Someone who took millions upon millions upon millions of dollars from the top banks to make sure they're not regulated is far, far more unelectable. What kind of defense can progressives make of Hillary Clinton in the general election? Our hands are going to be tied.
On various issues you can, but not on a couple of extremely important issues that we have every reason to believe the population is more in tune with than normal. We can't.
If she's running against Rubio or Cruz, you could eviscerate those guys on all the money that they've taken from donors. But then you'd have to say, if you're being honest, and obviously that's what we would do, but Hillary Clinton has done the same. Has done the same. Okay, you know what that makes you? Less electable. Wake up.